Good evening again. Let's call this meeting to order, the Champaign County Board Committee of the Whole. It's Tuesday, January 9th, 2018. Time is 8:36. 8:36? 8:06. Roll call, please.
Marsh,
Here.
McGuire, Mitchell, Patterson, Petrie,
Present.
Rector, Rosales, Storr, Summers, Tinsley, Anderson, Clemens, Clifford,
Here.
Cowart, Cruz, Esri,
Here.
Furtado, Goss,
Here.
Harper,
Here.
Hartke,
Here.
King, Weibel.
President, we have a quorum. Seek approval of the agenda and the addendum. Moved by Ms. Esri, second by Ms. Petrie. Discussion. One correction. Thank you, Ms. Rhodes. Item D3 on page 2. The term for Chris Storr is 2018 to 2020. My math was poor.
Would you repeat that, please?
2018 to 2020. For Chris Storr for D3, page 2, near the top. Okay, with that correction, and all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Seek approval of the minutes, December 12th, 2017. They're in the yellow handout, moved by Mr. Harper. Second by Mr. Esri. Discussion on the minutes. You, of course, received these electronically several days ago. See no discussion. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Public participation. 2 chances tonight. Nope. Okay. Seeing none, let's go on to communications from board members. Mr. Harper.
I brought it up in call because I just wanted to, don't know if everybody realized that longtime board member Steve Moser lost his son last Friday in a car accident. So just wanted to let everybody know.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to mention that. As far as I know, the services have not been set yet. It will be at the funeral home on South Philo Road, though. Mr. King.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just many of you all may have received this as well, but there is the Champaign County Soil and Water Conservation District celebration that's coming up on February 2nd. That's a Friday, I think at lunchtime, and just wanted to make sure folks were aware of it. I think there'll be a free buffet lunch that takes place, but you will need to RSVP, which I'll be happy to share that number with right now. Can I share?
Go ahead.
Okay, cool. It's 217-352-3536, extension 3. You need to RSVP by January 26th. And this is a everyone is welcome, bring a friend type event. So, thank you.
That was one friend, Mr. King. Any other communications? Okay, let's move on to, we're going to have the, Mr. King, we're going to have the nursing home go first, give their report, because they want to get out of town.
Okay.
Please.
Well, good evening. That was quite a discussion. And, you know, you all have your packets, so I know that you see, and, you know, we're happy to go through this, but, you know, it is positive, the report that we have to tell you is that August, September, October, November, the census at the end of November, the average daily census was 138. So it slowly is continuing to build, although I will say, and this is industry standard, during December and early January, the holidays, there's always a little bit of a lull, and there is a lull now, but we had anticipated that hopefully it will go up. Net revenue is $1,076,374. consistent on a per-day basis. It's up 92,716, primarily due also to the IGT revenue for the first 10 months. Operating expenses continue to stay consistent on a monthly basis, but we're a little bit higher because of the nurses that had quit, the 6 nurses that we talked about in the past. And we'll do everything we can to keep the status quo right now with the staff. And by the way, I don't know, if there was a whole line of staff that was sitting back there. I just wanted you all to know. So there are a bunch of nurses, CNAs, and department heads. So they've left, though. I don't see anybody still here. Net operating income is steadily improved, negative $70,000 by $97,000 approximately. Net operating income, $100,000. Non-operating income is consistent with the prior month. And net operating loss is $30,018, which is a positive. And net results continue to improve, $96,000 increase to prior month. And then just a little bit of the expense detail. Administrative expenses are $26,000 lower due to the decrease in attorney and legal fees by $18,323 in finance charges. Going forward in the months, in December, and now I think in January, there will be an increase in legal fees because we were working on the RFP during the December months. So I believe that it was during, if Barb is still here, I think it was during December. Yes, it was. So first week of December, we were working on, we had input into the RFP too. So the entire environmental services are $9,853 higher. Gas is obviously more expensive than electric. Building repairs are down. We had issues prior to that with the doors. Those have been fixed permanently, hopefully. Nursing expenses increased slightly due to the orientation for the new nurses when those other nurses had quit. And dietary supplies are $9,232 due to prior period expenses, which were recognized in November 17. So that kind of summarizes the financials, the whole packet that you have. And there is a lot of things going on at the facility. January 22nd, we'll be working with the University of Illinois with their marketing class. We'll be going into class, and there'll be the marketing, advertising agency, so to speak. We're going to be working with the kids, and we're going to be their main client, and obviously it's going to be for free, so that's a really good thing. And we did have a meeting this morning that was referenced earlier, which was pretty unbelievable. We had more people than our first meeting. There were about 8 people in the meeting from Presence and from Carl, and we had a bunch of the doctors that were very interested in working with the facility kind of from the not-for-profit status. The 3 not-for-profit facilities wanted to get together to figure out what could be done, and we talked about different types of residents that we could admit with their financial help that we cannot afford to take care of now because it's just too expensive for us with our financial position, as well as even private facilities sometimes don't take these type of residents on, and they talked about sharing expense with us. You know, we provide the kind of basic care that we provide, all the things that we would perhaps provide to other residents, but they would pay possibly, just to give you an example, you know, for maybe equipment or possibly medications or something like that. So it was a really good discussion, and they had asked about the meeting tonight. Would that change the discussions? And, you know, we said that the best thing to do, as we do, is just keep on puddling on that, and whatever we can do to improve the facility at any time is going to be helpful in general for the facility. So it's in everyone's best interest, no matter what, to just keep going. And so we plan planned for our next meeting to be in February, and they all wanted to come to the facility. All the doctors were going to come to the facility. So that's a really, that's a great thing, because the facility did not have those relationships before. So we're really thrilled about the relationships. So we had a few different things. In February 25th, we have an art walk that is really interesting. We've already had 10 artists from the community. We put signs out all over that have gotten in touch with us that want to show their artwork at the facility. So in the city, I don't know if you know, in Chicago, they do a lot of art walks throughout the art districts. And so I don't know if that's done here very often, but we've done it in other facilities where artists put their artwork up and the community comes to really watch it, and as well as possibly, buy their work, and we can exhibit it throughout the halls. And so not only does it bring, positive, good things to the residents and to the families visiting, but it also attracts people to come there knowing that this type of artwork is displayed. I know that many of you know that Courier Cafe has done that in the past, and some other places too. So I think that's kind of a little bit of a summary.
Questions? Ms. Petrie?
Hi.
Hi.
I'd like to go back to my statement that I put on the public record of my interest in having some entities, and it would seem SAK would be one of the good entities, to bring forth for all of us to see a prospectus of how financially you see the nursing home turning around and what increment of time. Nothing etched in stone, nothing that people will be nailed to the wall over, but we're in a really tough decision making right now. And to me, and it may only be myself, there's a huge gap of information in the sense that so many people come and say to us that it has to stay a county home, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we have no figures to help us make that decision. How long can the county go along supporting the home in a deficit manner before the home starts paying its own way? And it's an enterprise fund, so that's a very important aspect. And is that something that SAK can provide for us in, say, 6-month increments and run some models that would say, we'll be at this point if we have this kind of payer mix, or we do these changes?
So we kind of, we have kind of presented that in the budget. We've given somewhat of a, in August, somewhat of a scenario that we felt comfortable in achieving, and we have achieved most of those numbers. I don't want to tell you that we can, overachieve, even though we did overachieve in the past few months, but I'm not sure what else.
Okay, so I wouldn't be getting any more from you than what we saw in August.
I mean, we're happy to talk to you. I'm just not sure.
Okay,
what you're asking for. So maybe if we talk,
okay,
one-on-one.
That would be fine.
Yeah.
Because I would like to, what you presented in August was okay, but I need to see some more scenarios within models to see where are the points that we really need to be hitting, or else we really have to, go back to the drawing board and have our tough discussions again. And how long can the county do this? Which is what I said.
We're happy to talk to you, because I think that's going to take a little bit more, talk
Okay,
to
fine.
see what I can understand where you're coming from.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Rector?
Mr. Weibel, Ms. Busey, I'm curious if we have what our media response policy is by different departments. And where I'm coming from is I was a little concerned with this the story in the newspaper, and I understand we can't control how the newspaper is written, but sometimes the message, I voted for S&K to run this place to get ready to sell it. And sometimes the information that they put out is a little bit different maybe than what the county wants to see come out. And I guess I'm just curious if we have a media policy on departments or consultants and their conversations with the media. So it's more of an informational question. Am I saying that okay, Ms. Busey? Do you understand what I'm trying to say, or Mr. Weibel? Or you can get back to me also. I'm not.
I don't believe the county board has ever adopted a policy that would address that issue.
Actually, I think it'd be pretty hard because we've got lots of elected officials who could ignore the rule. Obviously, we could do that for the ones that are not headed by elected officials, but it'd be tough.
So does each department have their own policy? I mean, I
don't think so,
but I got to believe.
We're off topic here.
Well, but it reflects back. I think we need to control the message, and I think if somebody's working for us, we should have input on what message and what information is shared with the community.
Okay, thank you for your opinion. Further questions to SAK, Mr. McGuire.
Sure. I wasn't going to go too much into this, but
You don't have to.
Yeah, I know. I just from what Patsy's question was, it kind of concerned me because of the whole discussion we had earlier and the comments. I think I want to see things move forward more in a positive way, especially now. And you talked about the budget and the information you gave her. And the budget indicated that you'd be at 144 in the census now. And I understood and knew from past discussions with management of the nursing home that around Christmas and census is difficult to keep up. Further, not only with those numbers I gave earlier of the county subsidizing the nursing home by 1.4 million, 1.1 and 1.1 for 3 years, that budget that you just discussed and glossed over, you don't pay a vendor payment, any of that debt that we talked about, which is over $5 million right now, it grows through that whole budget that you just described as positive for 5 years, that Jim Goss just talked about as a graph. I mean, I don't understand, even when you said that you made money for $100,000, which I think he's talking about, or you made $30,000, I'm sorry, how you had more revenue every one of those months when the census didn't go up 2 or 3 or by 2 or 3. I mean, if you have a stable census, where did that revenue come from to give you more revenue in that month to give you another $100,000?
So we've talked about this with Jim, and we've gone in detail. Yeah, I mean, there's expense management, there's a lot of different areas that, economies of scale. We've kind of gone into it detail by detail. I mean, I think maybe we're happy if you want, we'll do it again. And I think that, it took quite a while. We answered every question. Did you feel comfortable with how we responded?
Well, sure, I felt comfortable. It's just when you start to look at charts that go straight up like this, I mean, this is not a positive result. And there's July 1st, and I mean, that line goes, that's slope.
From an operationally, from an operational aspect, that's what we're not, as I said, from day one, I can't change what happened prior to us coming on. But from an operational aspect going forward on a daily basis, from June till, what is this, November, this is what the operations show.
Can I add? Do you mind?
No, go.
We are going over November financials today, but I want to bring you up to speed on overall what was happening in December. So you can see that not on an accrual basis, we are trying to manage and improve the performance of the facility, but on a cash basis as well, because that's one of the questions we heard here in the past. So I did some preliminary review of December cash, and if we open the month with only 21,000, I think, in available cash, we closed the month with 260, a little over 260, 261. And we collected in cash receipts over $1 million, not counting IGT, quarterly IGT that was received in December. I think I'm very close to the final numbers. Once the nursing home confirms that everything is in, I will have the final. But what it should tell you, what is the message that I'm trying to deliver here, is that yes, in this business, it's tough business. There are obstacles, but we are working through them, and we are trying to do everything possible and impossible to still collect of what we believe was earned by the nursing home. And if in November our cash receipts from operations were a little over $575,000, in December we collected close to $1 million, a little over $1 million, because of the issues that we experienced with Melina and a few other peer sources, we're able to solve and get them more current as they were before. It takes time. I know you as a board of a whole are tired of hearing this message because you've been hearing this for years, from what I understand now better. But we're not magicians. I can't pull all of a sudden to show that I will be able to improve this business in 6 months to collect extra $5 million to pay all the debt that was historically accumulated in 15 years. Even if I was to bring it to 100% occupancy today, I won't be able to. What I can offer and am doing as part of SAK team is to look for solutions that will improve the cash flow and have it more stable and slowly improve that. That's our goal, and we believe that should work. We try to work with accounts receivable resources. We reported to you last month that we signed the contract with collection company. They start working late December. They pull the information, they start working the accounts. They try to collect on some privates already. They send the reports to me on a weekly basis. Unfortunately, they didn't have much information, contact information on the private accounts to get hold of former patients of the nursing home, but they are working on that.
And these are patients that have passed away or patients'
We're talking about
families
old
who have
AR.
moved. You know, we are pulling every single opportunity that we can.
We are, they rebuilt some of the hospice accounts, over 60,000. They will be following up in the next week or so to see the status. Today, I saw them exchanging emails with the nursing homes and with us, trying to get some information so they can go back to insurance companies, to Medicaid, and try to attempt to rebuild. It's going to take time. I never promised any magic solutions. I promised my and SAK's commitment to make it work to the best of our abilities to get the best outcomes to you as a nursing homes business unit. I review Medicaid pendings with the nursing homes team, and we finally signed the agreement today with the group S4 that will be helping with approval of Medicaid applications. That is a huge problem in our state. It's not exclusive to this county, but that's a challenge. It's a challenge knowing that you have everything done properly and you can't get it approved and get paid. But to say, no, we're not going to provide care to this patient, you as a county probably can't and shouldn't, because that's we shouldn't. But I am committed to follow up on every of these accounts to assure that you can get paid, that they have all the information, and we should work with the state to get it paid. Yes, your accounts payable will go up because historically you, as a county, decided that your Social Security and the pension will be delayed till the following year's tax anticipation funds are available to you. So that's one of the reasons your accounts payable will go up. Do we delay some other vendor payments? Yes, we do, because we can work with them and they can work with us, with the county, and they understand what is happening in the state. Though I do want to make sure, and I'm committed to cover your county's employees that provide care to these patients at the nursing home. So I will make everything possible and impossible to have funds or attempt to get as close as was needed to cover the payroll. And I am working with the vendors. They call me, I call them all the time. They don't call nursing home figures out what to do. They call me as a CFO at SAK Management, nationwide company, to handle AP matters, and I'm okay with that. And they're okay with discussing that with us because they have confidence that we will pay them. They know that we will work with them and get them paid. That's how we are. Maybe slower than some of you want to see, but we are working through the challenges to get it.
And remember, as we say this all the time, it took 15 years to get here. We've been here 5 months. I mean, we're not magicians. I'd like to be a magician, you know, and you also remember, we deal also, you know, with staff, and we push them as well to do their jobs. And a lot of people are not used to being accountable. And so we, you know, look, we want to move this facility in the direction of improvement. We were not hired under any special terms to sell the facility or do anything. We were hired to improve the facility, and that's what we're doing. And we continue to improve the operations and to improve wherever we can. That was how we were hired.
Mr. King?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Two questions that I had. Thank you all. I know you've mentioned you're not magicians. I agree, but I appreciate your efforts to make a case, a strong case for the work that you all have done for the nursing home. So I look at it, I heard the 15-year mark quite a bit as well, and I continue to think, you know, if we've only given you all a half a year, and this is where we are at this point. I know it's not perfect, and I get that, and the numbers may not be as clean as quite a few of the businessmen and business people around the table would like, but I do see progress, and so I just want to make sure to state that. But I did have two questions. One is, within what you all are doing, are there specific things you all are doing to make sure that you're still affordable for the county, or are there certain things you have to give up in order to continue to make progress, the kind of progress you're making?
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understood that.
Specific question about affordability, and within the time that you all have taken over, have you been able to either maintain what level of affordability we were, or have you been able to even maybe make a case that you all are more affordable now since you all have come aboard?
Well, I mean, you know, everybody works to get paid, you know.
Of course.
And I think that we've delivered what we said we would deliver. I think we continue, and every day, you know, we want to provide the service that we can. And you got to remember, we're also working with individuals.
Move closer to the mic, please.
Yeah.
Or move the mic to you. There you go.
Okay. And we're working with individuals too. So it's not a widget game. It's working with individuals. So, I mean, from an affordable standpoint, I know groups that charge much more. We're actually very reasonable with the type of work and the type of commitment and time that we put in to this facility. We put more hours into this facility than any one of our engagements. So had I known really what the commitment was, I maybe would have increased the rate. So I believe that we're worth what we've, you know, offered, and then some.
I just want to add one short comment to that. When there was a comment here before about accounts payable going up, I want you to refer back to the agreement that you as a county have with SAK Management. Per our contract, we're to be paid by the 1st, or on the 1st of the month for the upcoming month services. I can tell you that only this week, most likely we'll get paid for our December. We don't treat your other vendors any differently than we treat us to get paid. We look at the issue as a whole. We don't say, oh, because I'm part of SAK, I want to be paid at the last week of November for December. Today is the 9th. I didn't get paid for December. forget about January. So that's how we approach that, talking about affordability of our services. I don't think a lot of management company will
Would do
offer you this type of solution. Private companies, they do have management companies as well. You all aware, you know the industry enough because you've been part of this industry.
They get paid by the first or they walk out. 10 days, they're gone if they don't get a check.
We treat ourselves as a vendor, not as an employee. And if we need to delay payment to ourselves, we do that. Because the needs of your nursing home come first to us.
And then my second question is, how do you all feel after this RFP release? What do you anticipate as some of the challenges that you all will have to deal with now that the RFP proposal has been released?
I think the important thing is that, you had staff listening here to a lot of the comments that were said. So think about what was said and think about what they were listening to. They take care of the patients, the residents. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to be in the newspaper tomorrow. I don't know how it's going to be portrayed. I do know that in November, we lost 6 nurses. We do everything to tell them that the facility is going to be there no matter what. We talked about that today. So I can't control what people do. I also now cannot control the census because, as the doctor said to us today, should we continue with these talks? And we told them absolutely. And they said to us right out, how can we tell people to go to the county home if the county home's not going to be there? I said the county home will be there no matter what. It may be a different name or it may be something different. But, their goal, this was a not-for-profit group. So if a not-for-profit buys it, that's great. If a for-profit buys it and they figure out a way to continue in the discussions, that's also great.
Okay, let's try to wrap this up. Any last questions? Can you make them quick, Mr. Marsh? Okay, go ahead. Microphone.
Thank you. Just one quick question. On the break, one of our honorable colleagues asked me a question, and it was a question I'd asked last month. I'd like to see a cash flow that's a simple sheet of sources and uses. It'd be nice to have it every month because then we could compare it and actually see where we're at. Because to come and say on a accrual basis we made money, that really is not an accurate statement in terms of you can't spend accrued money at the bank or pay a vendor with accrued money. So I'd like to, and last month I thought you said you'd do that for us. So if we could get a simple one-page sheet of sources and uses of cash, that would be very helpful.
I think November package, page 2, includes statement of cash receipts and disbursements, just to give you an idea.
Yeah, it's too simple. There's not enough lines. I mean, it's not a whole. We need to see a source and uses of the income, the outflow of the cash. And again, it can be one page, but you can't do it in 3 lines. That's not.
We have the statement of cash flows as well there. More detail as was there on a monthly basis before. If you want something slightly different, if you can draft a template that
that'd be
you want
great.
to see.
Perhaps you two should meet and actually maybe throw some samples back and forth. Might be the best way of doing it.
Because if we had a source and uses that showed really the lines of expense in the categories, it'd really be easy to see where we're making progress and we're falling behind. So that's what I was hoping to get. But yeah, we'll.
Why don't you contact her?
Yes, sir.
After the meeting, or perhaps you can do that. If you don't have her email, let me know. I think it'd be the best way of doing it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. You may now go home.
Thank you.
Okay, going back to the agenda. You're welcome. Let's go to Justice and Social Services. Mr. King.
Thank you, sir. I think first up we have State's Attorney Reese to talk a little bit about the Bail Reform Act that's coming up here. Oh, and we also have Deputy Sheriff up as well. Thank you.
I'm just here to push the button and to keep her moving.
I know.
Thank you. Let's all just sit here and talk about me. So I am here tonight to talk to you all about the Bail Reform Act. Mr. King asked me to give this presentation to you all about what we're doing in Champaign County in response to the Bail Reform Act. So the legislature enacted Public Act, did I tell you to? The legislature enacted Public Act 100-001 in the spring of last year, and it's called the Bail Reform Act. And it has led to a lot of discussion here locally among us in the criminal justice system as well as statewide. I've had many meetings at state's attorney functions with other state's attorneys about how we were going to respond to the requirements of the Bail Reform Act, and here locally we've also met many times to come up with our plan. And so the Bail Reform Act, now you can, thank you, makes a number of changes in the state bail laws. And I think, first of all, it's important to note that it does a number of things, responds to a number of issues that frankly are not our issue here in Champaign County. I think it's generally agreed that it really was created to address a number of issues up in Cook County. And it has some requirements that are not relevant to us because we have already been doing many of these things that are required by the Bail Reform Act. So to boil down the changes that are required by this state legislation, the first one is that the Bail Reform Act requires that people who are in custody on monetary bail after they're arrested should have the right to appointed counsel at bail hearings. That was not previously a requirement under the law, and there are many counties in Illinois where people appeared at bail hearings without representation. If they couldn't afford it, there was not appointed counsel. If they could afford it, they could hire an attorney and have one there, but there was not always an attorney present representing them at bail hearings. That sounds very strange to us in Champaign County because we have actually had appointed counsel, had the public defender's office present at bail hearings at all points in the process since ever. I started as an assistant state's attorney in 1993. I don't know if Mrs. Busey has an idea of when we started having the public defender at bail hearings.
488 when I started.
Long before Alan started in 1988. So we have always had a defendant represented by counsel at all stages in the proceeding, including Saturdays and Sundays, weekend bond court. The public defender's office has an assistant public defender present representing the individual, speaking to them beforehand, gathering their information, providing it to the court for the process of setting bail. So the first change really has no effect for us. Many other counties don't have that, and it's, of course, creating some issues for them, particularly down in southern Illinois, the smaller counties where they might not have a appointed public defender, where there's a lot more distance for travel, that sort of thing. But this is not an issue for us, so no changes required. We've done that forever. The second change discusses the conditions of release other than monetary bail. So monetary bail meaning when somebody's arrested on a felony or on a domestic battery. Misdemeanors, generally, there's an amount set by statute that they can post. But if you're arrested on a felony, you have to appear in front of a judge, and the judge sets the monetary amount of bail. And the requirements for bail are that it has to be based on the likelihood that the person is going to appear and follow court orders, and the risk that the person poses to the public, to the safety of the public. And so the second change that the Bail Reform Act discussed was that there are other requirements of bail, and the presumption is that those requirements should be non-monetary. So things like no contact orders, ankle monitoring bracelets, treatment requirements, substance abuse treatment, that sort of thing, The law requires that the court consider non-monetary presumptions or conditions of release as a presumption rather than strict monetary conditions. And we do that in some situations. We do no contact orders, but part of the problem with some of those is that, of course, ankle monitoring bracelets, treatment, all those things cost money. And so if we were to require individuals as a condition of their release to wear an ankle monitoring bracelet, to go get a substance abuse evaluation and do treatment, somebody has to pay for that. And at this point, it's the defendant. So as we're talking about some of these issues as far as our financial situation, we have to take into account if we're going to try to use those conditions, who's going to pay for that? Are we paying for that? Is the individual defendant paying for that? And of course, if they violate those non-monetary terms of release, then what happens next? In my opinion, that places an additional burden on the individual that could land them back in our jail if they don't comply with those conditions of release. Sure.
Ms. Reeds. So in other words, you could have someone who gets put in jail and they have a $100 bond, but the other determined, like the ankle bracelet could cost $300.
Right, because generally those are done by a private company and they charge on a daily basis. Right, and so the question is, who pays for that? Do we pay for that, or does the defendant pay for that? Right now, we don't use ankle monitoring bracelets for bond purposes, for pretrial release. We do use it as a sentence, generally in traffic cases and lower-level misdemeanor cases, and that's a whole program that the sheriff's office administers to determine whether someone's appropriate for that, and the individual pays for it. But pretrial, we don't use it right now, and of course, the question would be, who pays for it? And then the Bail Reform Act requires the court to consider the defendant's socioeconomic circumstances when setting conditions or imposing monetary bail. And again, we have the Public Defender's Office representing individuals and providing the court with information about the defendant's socioeconomic circumstances in that process, as opposed to many other counties that don't have that, and so the judge doesn't get that information. And I can tell you that generally what the Public Defender's Office will do is they will advise the court, if the court sets monetary bail, my client could post $300, and the court will take that into account. The more important significant changes for us in Champaign County are the categorization of offenses, the automatic bail review hearings, and the bail credit for time in custody. Those are the issues that we've spent a lot of time and effort discussing and coming up with a plan, and so those I'm going to go into a little bit more detail. Thank you. So the Bail Reform Act basically puts all of the offenses into two categories, Category A offenses and Category B offenses. And it's a little confusing because criminal offenses are already categorized as felonies are X's, 1s, 2s, 3s, or 4s, and misdemeanors are A's, B's, and C's. So the Bail Reform Act creates two categories. Category A offenses are all Class X offenses, all Class 1 and 2 felonies, and homicide. So anything that's an X, 1s and 2s, and homicides is a Category A offense. And then specific Class 3 and 4 felonies and specific misdemeanors are Category A offenses. And these are generally offenses where there are victims, personal victims, or certain firearm offenses, sex offenses, serious traffic offenses like felony leaving the scenes, felony DUIs, reckless homicide, stalking, those sorts of things that are Class 3 and 4 felonies but are more significant than a number of other Class 3 and 4 felonies. And then specific misdemeanors such as aggravated assault, battery, domestic battery, again, misdemeanor offenses where there are personal victims. So child endangerment, reckless conduct, phone harassment, criminal sexual abuse, these are already misdemeanors, but they have people as victims, and so they're considered Category A offenses. The Category A offenses are not affected by the Bail Reform Act. So there are no changes, no benefits provided by the Bail Reform Act for people who are in custody on Category A offenses. Next slide, please. Category B offenses are the offenses that get the benefits from the Bail Reform Act, and they are the less serious offenses. So they are misdemeanors other than those specified as Category A's, so theft, retail theft, criminal damage, property crimes, possession of cannabis, lower level driving cases, those kinds of things are Category B misdemeanors. And then the Class 3 and 4 felonies, possession of controlled substances, again, property crimes, felony felony theft offenses, burglary to motor vehicle, obstructing justice, and some gun offenses, which is an issue, frankly, that as state's attorneys we have because there are some gun offenses that are Class 3 and 4 felonies, but are still very serious offenses and may be a subject for future discussion in the legislature as far as whether they should be Category A's. But the Category B offenses are the offenses that get the benefit of the Bail Reform Act. So it's not all cases, it's just certain cases get the benefit of the Bail Reform Act. And if they're, what do you mean?
A Category A and a Category B.
There are some people who could be charged with two different counts, one that's an A and one that's a B, but the A trumps the B. And so if it's just a Category B offense that an individual is charged with, just a theft, just a criminal damage to property, just a strict possession of controlled substances, those are Category B offenses. Yes?
Is that even if it's a Category A misdemeanor and a Category B felony?
Right.
Okay.
So the A trumps. So let's say it's a domestic battery and a possession of cocaine. That would be the domestic battery being a Category A offense trumps the Category B offense. So what are the benefits? Next slide, please. Two specific benefits of being a Category B offense. The Bail Reform Act requires that all people in custody on monetary bond who cannot post that monetary bond get an automatic bail review hearing. The law says that the bail review hearing has to be at the next available court date or 7 calendar days from the date bail was set, whichever is earlier. I think that language was given to allow those southern, smaller counties who don't have court every day some leeway. Here in Champaign County, we have court every day. And so we have decided that the next available court date is tomorrow. So if you are in custody today on a Category B offense and monetary bail is set, and you remain in custody tomorrow at 1:30, then you'll be brought back on the video monitoring screens for a rehearing on the question of bail. And the public defender again represents those individuals and has the opportunity to say, Judge, my client still couldn't come up with the X amount that they had to post. Can that be lowered? Can the conditions be changed? So this required us to come up with a process for how we were going to do that. So what we're doing is that when charges are filed, my office, the state's attorney's office, is creating a list for the court. And you can actually flip to the next screen there. So we're creating a list, which looks like this, basically. And on that list, we are providing the court and the jail and the public defender's office with which category a certain offense is. So you can see on the example that the first case was a theft with a prior theft. It's a Class 4 felony. It's a Category B. And so when we go into court, then the judge will put on the docket, on the court docket, a docket entry that notes that this particular offense is a Category B offense. And if the person remains in custody the next day, then the case is scheduled, calendared for arraignment court the next day. And that puts that on our court schedule. And so if the person cannot post the bond, they're automatically brought back in. And so we had to, again, come up with kind of a process to make sure that we knew who was a Category B and then get them back onto the docket entry the next day. The other change that's required, the other benefit for Category B offenses, and this one is a bit more complicated, particularly for the sheriff's office, is that a person subject to bail on a Category B offense gets a $30 a day credit deducted from their monetary bail every day the person is incarcerated. So the first issue that this created for all of us across the state was, what does that mean? $30 a day off of what, right? So if the judge sets bail at $3,000, you have to post 10%, so that's $300. So was it $30 a day off of the $3,000 or $30 a day off of the $300? And that's the language in the statute. Shall have $30 deducted from his or her monetary bail every day the person is incarcerated. There was a lot of debate about that, because obviously that makes a big difference. If it's $30 off the $300, that's 10 days. If it's $30 off the $3,000, that's 100 days. Well, it's been decided statewide that it was $30 a day off the $300. So $30 a day off the 10% amount. So the clock also, when does the clock start? Does the clock start when the person is in court and the judge sets that bail, or does it start when the person is arrested and taken to the county jail, which in some situations, in some counties, can be 2 or 3 days before they're actually in front of a judge? For us, we have bond court, arraignment court every day. So if you're arrested tonight, you're in court tomorrow at 1:30. But in some counties, there can be 2 or 3 days before you're actually in front of a judge. So we have interpreted it that the clock starts upon incarceration rather than upon appearance in court. And so what we're doing, again, our cases are categorized by my office when they're filed. That information is given to everyone involved, and the docket entry is put on there saying this is a Category B offense. That creates a list for the sheriff's office that Kirk Bedwell has helped us create through our Janos system that is updated every day at noon, calculating that $30 a day credit. So if you flip to the next one, here's an example, and it's kind of hard to see, of what that list looks like. And it basically is a list that the sheriff's office has available to them so that if somebody's in custody on a Category B offense and they want to post bond, and a relative, a family member calls to say, how much should I post for this person, then the sheriff's office knows what that $30 a day amount is every day as it goes on. If the person stays in custody past that or up to that $30 a day credit, then they are to be released. And we've created a bond form that addresses that advises that this person is being released based on X number of days credit due to their having been incarcerated pursuant to the Bail Reform Act. So we have all the forms ready to go, and the sheriff's office is prepared and able to address that. And have we had anybody who's gotten the credit?
Credit's been applied, but nobody's been released.
Okay, this list that you have here, that I have here on here that with the 2 people, that's it right now. Those are the 2 people that we have in custody who are Category B offenses who qualify for the $30 a day credit. And they have had their bail review hearings, and they're in custody getting their $30 a day credit, and if it gets down to 0, then they will be released. So we've worked together to create these processes, but again, I want to note 2 people. Okay, so I've got some statistics for you. The Bail Reform Act was not created for Champaign County. It's not going to make a significant difference in our incarceration numbers in our pretrial population. So here's today's numbers. Our total incarcerated population is 168. 13 of those people are out on electronic home detention, so we have 155 bedded, 24 of those sentenced. And so 131 of those are pretrial. They're people who have not yet been convicted who are being held on monetary bail. Of those, 5 are misdemeanors. 1 is traffic, which is a DUI. 6 of those, 131, were in custody before January 1st of 2018 on what would be considered a Category B offense. So the act went into effect on January 1st. People who've been in custody prior to January 1st don't get the benefit of the Category B offenses. There were only 6 of them. Post January 1st, we've got the 2 people who are on the list. Everyone else who's been arrested since January 1st on Category B offenses have either been released on recognizance or have posted the monetary bond and have been released. So, as you can see, we do not hold Category B offenses in our jail pretrial. We set appropriate cash bonds, they post those bonds, or we release them on recognizance. So this is not going to make a big difference in our pretrial numbers, in our incarceration numbers. We're going to do what is required, but I just don't want anyone to think that the Bail Reform Act is going to make a huge difference in Champaign County. And then on my PowerPoint, I did a little bit of research outside of Champaign County just to support those that position that I have about this, is that this Bail Reform Act is not about us. I took the 10 counties surrounding us in population, so the 5 bigger and the 5 smaller. So there they are, and we fit, and I'm sorry I didn't put it in there, but we're between St. Clair and Sangamon County population-wise. And their average daily in-custody numbers that I got from a Vera Institute study from 2016. And our average daily population is...
Our bedded average daily population for 2017 was 199. Our average daily population for all inmates that we're responsible for, including those housed in their own homes in EHD, is 221.
So if you put us between St. Clair and Sangamon at 199 bedded, you can see that we're lower than pretty much everybody above us and most of them below us in population. And then the next table, again, is from the Vera Institute of Justice. They did a really interesting study that you can find out all about jails all across the country if you look at this Vera Institute of Justice data, because they received data from, as I have on there, 2,584 jails across the country. Out of the total 3,144 U.S. counties, there are 2,584 jails that they studied. And this table that I copied here is a ranking of, and just pulling out the small and mid-metro counties that they considered us to be part of. The ranking of pretrial rates, incarceration. So looking at how many people you have in custody per 100,000 population in that particular county. And so out of 2,584 counties that they studied, we are 2,235th in pretrial rate of incarceration. That's low. West Baton Rouge, Paris, and Louisiana being number 1 with a pretrial rate of 993 per their 100,000 population. Ours is 81 per our 100,000 population. These are good things. Well, these are good things. I mean, there are always room for improvement. There are always things that we can improve on. But I want to let everyone know that we worked together on this project to be able to put into effect these changes in the law as of January 1st, and we're ready to go. And we're going to give people the benefits that are required by the law, but this is just simply not about us, because we're already doing all of these things. And I and Alan would be happy to answer any questions. Yes, sir.
This looks like maybe a county nightmare, but it gives it gives somebody just a different, or one more alternative for their bail. So, I mean, ultimately, it seems like a good thing. But unfortunately, you have to count the numbers and put them into the categories, so.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of coming up with the process was a little bit difficult, and to make sure that we had all of the information that we needed, so that we were not holding anybody past the time that the law allows us to hold them, was really important. And I think we've got a good system, and with good communication that we always have had, we should be making sure that we're addressing those issues.
So do you think the two individuals will take advantage of what you're offering, the $30 per day?
One of them potentially could get there. One of them could, their bail, if the bond is lower, they've got 130 left. But it just depends on family situation. And again, there's so many determinants whether or not they get out or not.
Just to be clear, like say for instance, if they were in the last several days of of running through those $30 a day, they could pay off the difference if they're on the last day? Okay.
Yeah, they could pay it at any point, and we wanted to make sure that if they had a family member who called to say, how much do I have to post, that we would be able to give them that accurate amount.
So a family member could essentially be like, oh, that's too much right now.
But
Wait,
tomorrow,
you're
right.
Okay.
Mhm.
Good.
If I could add just to that, this is feel sorry for me for a moment. The one challenge that we have is we try to put everybody on the website so that we don't have to have people calling us to ask for the bond, and they can go and find out what location for visitation and bond amount. We don't have the ability to recalculate this $30 a day piece, so they have to call in, which my favorite saying is at 2 o'clock in the morning when we're all sleeping, I want our staff to be able to answer these questions with ease and family members to be able to do that. So that's began a challenge for us. Now on to the fees. There is a fee, an administrative fee, that's charged with every bond that's posted. So you have to post $100. There's an administrative fee, I think it's $35, $34, somewhere in there, added onto that. And the sheriff's office is not going to allow that to hinder anybody who could be released under the Bail Reform Act credits. So we would be waiving those fees in that case, because we don't want to have over-detention issues at all. Say again?
You can't put the $30 to ameliorate the fee?
There's actually no care, no money coming in, it's all credit, no cash.
So go ahead, Mr. McGuire.
So if it's $300 bond, halfway through the process, something happens with the case, and it's dismissed, they get the money back?
No, if you post money and the case is dismissed or a person's found not guilty, then you would get the bail money back, yes. But in this sense, no, we don't owe them money that they haven't posted yet. No.
Okay, I got a question for you all. So I was trying to, two questions, I guess. Do you all anticipate any, and I don't know if you could speak to this right now, but changes in policing and how arrests take place as a result of this?
No, I don't expect that at all. And I haven't really heard anything from any law enforcement agencies about bail reform. And, what was important to me was to look at those that we have in custody and to say that we have been making the right decisions. When you look at that, the fact that pre-1118, there were only 6 people in custody on what would have been considered a Category B offense, to me that's significant because it says that we have been making the right decisions, or our judges have been making the right decisions, really, because it's the judge that sets the bond in felony cases, that the judges have been setting the right bonds on the right types of cases. So the people who are in custody pretrial are those who are in on those Category A offenses, which are the more serious offenses according to the legislature.
And then second question would be, this one's more so, I guess, in regards to city order violation, failure to appear. Will those, I guess those are category B?
Those are not
Not
categorized and have really, well, I guess they would be. Yeah, ordinance violations would be considered category B offenses. However, we have, well, I should let Alan talk about this, but I'm going to add also that, another thing that we've done and that local law enforcement agencies have been very cooperative with is that we've really encouraged and increased the use of notices to appear rather than custodial arrests. So when an officer is making that decision, they can decide to write an individual a notice to appear, which is basically an order saying you must appear in court on such and such a date, rather than actually taking them into custody and to the jail. And we've really encouraged the use of notices to appear, particularly on what would be otherwise category B offenses. So retail thefts, criminal trespass, and also on situations where somebody might have a medical issue where we don't necessarily want them to be in the jail, where we have to provide them care. We're often using notices to appear. So that, again, has cut down on our incarceration numbers and is appropriate based on the bail. But as far as the city ordinance arrests, we've long had a policy that I'll let Alan talk about.
Right, so people have long talked about city OV shows up as the charge when they see somebody posted on the website or an arrest. And those were failure to appear or failure to comply or pay warrants that are valid warrants issued by judges. Back in December, Judge DeFanis met with Sheriff Walsh and I and a couple other folks and instituted a change in how he was going to have the municipal courts handled. It went a little further than I expected, but on January 5th of this year, Judge DeFanis issued an order quashing about 2,500 city ordinance violation warrants. So basically, as it stands right now, nobody's going to be arrested on a city ordinance violation warrant of any type and or coming to the jail. That was a change that was unanticipated, but if you look at, I looked at the number of arrests that we've had and bookings at the jail since 2011. It's almost 5,000 bookings that we will not realize over that time period. So it's about 1,000 a year. So.
But prior to that,
we
also were able to release them.
Well, prior to that, we did have an administrative order from Judge DeFanis that allowed when somebody came in on an ordinance violation warrant, if they couldn't post the bond after a reasonable amount of time, the sheriff was allowed to get a notice to appear and release them. So those changes continue. Again, you asked about the policing tactics. There's not going to be a change. They're responding to the crimes, to the behaviors. What we have in the jail, we've been saying this for a long time, is a more violent group with more, generally with a higher rate of recidivism or repeat offenses. And then we deal with the mental illness and the physical mental issues that we have to, or medical issues that we have to deal with there.
Mr. Storr.
Thank you. You said that there were 2,500 or more than 2,500 notice or what for these ordinances?
They were valid, outstanding arrest warrants for violations or failure to appear on city ordinances. Judge DeFanis quashed. That's the legal term for did away with.
Are those folks notified of this, or do they just find out about it by accident?
Again, these are managed by the cities. This is the cities, Champaign, Urbana, Rantoul, Mahomet, all the others that have ordinances. We don't have, at the county level, ordinances that we can enforce. I don't know if they will go about any notification process, but I can say they won't be going to jail for it.
Okay, yeah.
You had mentioned that for some of the Category B offenses, it was some gun offenses, and there had been discussions of reviewing that. Like, what types of offenses were those?
Yeah, so felon in possession of a firearm is a Class 3 felony or a Class 4 felony, depending on the situation. And so that's a B. You're a convicted felon and you're in possession of a firearm, but it's categorized as a Class B. And as I can say, as the state's attorney and the State's Attorneys Association, we want to address that because we think that was an oversight by the legislature. if you're a felon on parole, then it's a class 2. But if you're just a felon in possession of a firearm, it's a class 3, and that's a category B.
And the other question I had, so for the $30 a day credit, is that the only amount, or is that just the minimum?
No, that's the amount under the statute.
Okay, so if like a local if a local county wanted to have it higher than that, would they even have the legal option to do that?
The legislation says $30 a day credit, so, which is more than the credit that you get off of required fines and fees. So if you're in custody and you stay in custody and then you end up pleading guilty or being found guilty and there's a fine or a fee required, you get a $5 a day credit off of what you're supposed to pay. The legislature came up with $30 a day. I don't know where that came from, but that's the amount that it says.
Mr. Tinsley?
Just two more questions. In regards to the $30 a day, are there any like loopholes as far as whether it can only be through paper currency or credit or debit?
As far as what you could post when you...
Like, I mean, could you, like, if someone were to come in and, I guess, bond somebody out, would it have to be cash up front or?
The credit that they get, the $30 a day, there's no money. That's just, we reduce the bond amount required to be posted by $30. And then there is no change to the way that we accept bond postings. So credit cards, I don't know if it's checks anymore, but cashier checks and cash.
And that goes for the difference as well? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
And my second question would be, as far as like the legislative aspect of parolees having felony possessions of firearms, would it technically matter since technically a parolee wouldn't have a bond anyway?
Well, if there was a hold put on someone by the Department of Corrections if they were on parole, then right, there still would be a bond set on the case that we charge, but they also could have a hold by the Department of Corrections. But frankly, just because someone's on parole and commits another offense doesn't mean the Department of Corrections automatically issues a hold.
Okay.
So they're two separate issues.
Thank you.
So we're looking at this chart here with the per capita pretrial rate. I just have two questions, because we're only seeing like the top 34 and then down to like 2,200.
It's a PowerPoint. I only had so much space.
Yeah.
Google
but
it.
My question is, I mean, are those ones on the top, are those like strong outliers, or do you see like kind of an even flow, or do you even know?
Well, I just clicked on, it's a really good website, actually. And so there's all kinds of different things you can click on. So I clicked on small and mid-metro counties because that's what they categorized us as, and asked for the top 10, small and mid-metro counties, and then where did we fall in comparison, and that's what it gave to me.
Why do you think that we're so low?
Because we do a good job.
I mean, is there anything specifically that you think that we're doing differently than other places that's allowing us to have such a low number?
I mean, I think the first thing is that we communicate and work well together. We always have. We started this conversation, frankly, when I was first elected in 2004, and we started talking about our jail issues. At that time, we would have been higher up on the list. We would have been, we were overcrowded. We were talking about needing to build bigger. And frankly, the boards over the past, now 13 years that I've been the state's attorney has said no. And so we've had to address our issues differently. There's changes in philosophy. Those are good things. And so we have made changes that have dropped our population from capacity to where we're at now. We're well below capacity. We're making good decisions. We're doing good work. We should be proud of the work that we do in the criminal justice system. I know I am. I know Alan is. I know the judges are, and I hope you all are too.
My turn. Thanks for the softball, Kyle. These guys, the elected, and the Judge DeFanis, Dan Walsh, Julia Reitz, Judge DeFanis talk and relate information back and forth every day, weekends, holidays, nighttime. That's why we're successful. We have quality people making the right decisions in the leadership, and this is what these changes we're gonna continue. We're gonna see this. We are reaching a plateau, and our violence levels in our community are still high. So, the ebb and flow will catch up with us, but they do good work, and they deserve the credit.
Mr. Furtado. Ms. Furtado.
Can you go one slide back, I think? Do you have any sense of what's up with McHenry County?
I don't know.
Okay. Just why they're so low per capita?
I don't know, and that's just, again, I got this from this Vera Institute study, and I looked at that and thought, that's interesting. I should ask the McHenry County State's Attorney. I don't know if it seems weirdly low given their population, so I don't know if they have a more robust electronic home detention process or what, but that is interesting.
I think they have just a great economy, and a lot of people have jobs, and generally people who have jobs create less crime. If you look at it, Winnebago's a different story.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a difference, but to me, and with no criticism, of course, to any of those other counties, if we look at the counties around us, Sangamon, Springfield, Peoria County, McLean County, Rock Island, our numbers are much lower than theirs are.
Could it be a possibility that, like when you think of Kane, McHenry, and Kendall, like all these are pretty fairly close to Cook.
Right.
So like, could there be like a relationship in like
That could be,
the
yeah.
arrest numbers? Like,
That
as far
could
as
be.
Okay.
Any more questions for state's attorneys? Okay. Thank you. We appreciate the work that you all are doing, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That is mine, yes.
It's been so long. So, moving forward, just want to note the monthly reports that are all available online on the county website here at www.co.champaign.illinois.us/countyboard/reports.php. This will be the animal control report for November 2017, the Emergency Management Agency December 2017 report, the Probation and Court Services November 2017 report, the Public Defender November 2017 report, and the Veterans Assistance Commission November 2017 report. Just to make sure to note that those reports are November and one of them is in December, and that's the Emergency Management Agency. Other than that, I don't think there's any additional business. I just wanted to note within the chair's report, I guess, that the Racial Justice Task Force report, through some advisement, I've looked into, I guess, taking the report and breaking it up into topics and using the next few cows as an opportunity to review parts of the report, with the first part in February being focused on housing as part of the report, listed housing for people with criminal convictions. There was a priority step that was suggested of removing barriers to achieving stable housing for people with criminal conviction records. So we'll use the next cow as an opportunity to take a look at that recommendation and talk as a group. So, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. King. Next, policy person on appointments, Mr. Rector.
Thank you, Mr. Weibel. Item A1, there's a list of the county board appointments expiring in 2018. That's for information only. Item A2, Mr. Weibel.
Nominate Mr. Caitlin Hitzman for the Rural Transit Advisory Group, term January 1, 2018 to December 31st, 2019.
Is there a second? Mr. King. Mr. Weibel, any comments?
She's been on the board before. I think she's a valuable member, and I'd like to have her up for another term.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Mr. Weibel, item 3.
Nominate Mr. Edmund Sutton to the Nursing Home Board of Directors, term December 1, 2017 to November 30th, 2019.
Thank you. Second by Mr. Anderson. Pius?
He's the only one who applied, and that's why I nominated him. We still have a couple vacancies.
Discussion. Mr. Anderson?
I'd like to support Mr. Sutton as well. I've worked with him for, I think, the last 2 years now. He pays careful attention to the information and is dutiful in his duties on that board, so I would also recommend him. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Storr?
Does that mean that we have 2 vacancies unfilled on the nursing home board?
I'll defer.
Those will remain occupied by the current people in those positions until we're able to fill them. So they're not vacant. They're just pending a new appointment.
Actually, we have one vacancy because Deb took this other job.
Right.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes. Mr. Holton, do you have anything to add to the reports that are included here?
No, sir, it just has to be placed on file.
Mr. Holton's report as county clerk will be placed on file. Moving along, item C, county administrator. The administrative services report has been distributed. It's right here in yellow. Item 2, Ms. Busey. Ms. Busey?
Item 2 is last month you approved sending the GIS specialist position to the Job Content Evaluation Committee for reevaluation. We met and reevaluated the position. It has definitely changed since the last time it was evaluated, which was when it was created 2 years ago. So we didn't really know everything that the position would entail when it was originally created. One of the major impacts is, and this is also under the requirements of FLSA, because of the type of work it does in computer programming, this position is required to be exempt under FLSA. We had previously had it classified as non-exempt, which was an hourly position, and now it is a salaried position. And in our salary administration system, that is going to always have a positive impact on the wage scale for the position. And then secondly, with the additional responsibilities that have been added, the position, the new evaluation recommends that the position be upgraded by 2 grades. So it would go from where it is right now in grade range G to grade range I.
Do we need a motion to approve that, sir? Okay, I move.
You need a motion to forward it to the Finance Committee.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
And then the
Item 2.
resolutions, yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, the next 2 are just resolutions honoring county employees from the 2017 employee recognition.
So I'll move that resolution. I'm sorry? I'll move both resolution C3 and C4. Sorry. I'm seeking. Yeah. Thanks, Shana. Shana's helping me out. Motion by Shana Joe. Second by Ms. Furtado. Any discussion?
I was 7 years from being born when they got hired.
There was an event in December. There was a luncheon event in December, and they were formally recognized at that event.
Ms. Petrie?
This is an information question on the logistics of this. They are recognized at that lovely luncheon that happens in December. Why do we wait so long to get around to this resolution? Is it a procedural thing?
No, it should have been done in December. You had a lot of transition going on in administrative services in December, and it didn't get done.
I wasn't asking you to put you on the
So we
spot.
still want to do it. You still want the resolution on file recognizing these employees.
Oh, right,
But
now.
it should have been on the December
Okay,
agenda.
that's all I wanted to check on. Thanks.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Item D1. Mr. Weibel? Oh.
I move that we nominate Ms. Stephanie Furtado as Deputy Chair of the Vice Committee of the Whole to replace Diane Michaels.
Second, where was that?
Hartke.
Mr. Hartke. Second by Mr. Hartke. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Weibel, item D2.
Move the nomination of Mr. Jim Goss as Assistant Deputy Chair of the Finance of the Whole to replace Stephanie Furtado.
Mr. Anderson with the second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Item D3.
I move the appointment of Mr. Chris Storr as Liaison to Community Action Board to replace Lorraine Cowart, term from January 2018 to December 2020.
Second by Mr. King. Any discussion? All in favor? Chair's report. There's a county board appointment expiring February 28, 2018 for the Lincoln Legacy Committee, one vacancy. Items to be placed on the consent agenda. Was it A23, C234, D123? You can correct that, sir.
C2 will go to finance.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
I think that looks good. All right, thank you, Mr. Rector. Next up, Finance.
Finance, we will start with a report from our treasurer.
So first off, I'd like to ask that the monthly reports be accepted and placed on file.
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Tag, you're it. That's what I heard Diane say. Next up is the monthly cash flow report. And we're looking at the 2018 numbers here, so this is just, through 9 days, so it's not a whole lot to show you right now. But January 2018, cash today was $52,387 this is for the nursing home. Projecting through, once we've done one payroll so far this month, we have in there what we've paid in accounts payable, monthly revenue thus far for the year, for the month, I should say. And that shows you the ending cash balance here, the 168. That's just a projection based on averages. We now have a full year of averages in the spreadsheet. Remember when Treasurer Welch started this, we didn't have things to work on, so we are able to do that. Let's look at the general corporate fund here. Yes, any questions on this one? Sure, go ahead.
When I'm looking at it, it's a little hard to read it because, I'm sorry, when I'm looking at it, it's a little hard because the lights are glaring in it, but there's a considerable negative, almost the second line from the bottom.
This one here, the negative 331.
Yeah,
that's
and then
if
you go all the way
if you did not include the $500,000 that were loaned to you, that's what your cash balance would be projected at. The $500,000 that's been loaned to the nursing home and was renewed tonight, that shows you right there. If you did not have that $500,000, that's where the home would be. Projected.
Okay. I always have a hard time with when I listen to you and the auditor, now that you've shifted roles, and then I listen to what SAK is telling me. I think I'm going to have to come to your office to reconcile some of these figures that are being given to us, because they're not working out.
So this report that you're looking at is projections. These numbers will change. They can change. Okay? They are not actual cash coming in. We've projected certain things on this particular report. Now, one of the things that Ms. Resnick mentioned during her report on the nursing home finances was actual money that came into the nursing home in November when she talked about the cash receipts. She said around $575,000, $583,000 was the actual number that came in November. What they paid out in AP and payroll during November was $830,000. So actual cash coming in, cash going out, They were in the negative $246,000 for November of 2017. In December, actual cash coming in was $1,014,645. Actual money going out, payroll and AP, was $883,154. That shows then for the month of December, they were positive by $131,000. Of that $131,000 that shows them being positive in December, $114,000 was the IGT payment that we're always being told we're waiting on IGT. It came in on December 27th. If you look at the average for 2017, this isn't on this. I've just got these numbers here because I figured they'd be good numbers to give to the board. If you do the average for the year of 2017, cash going out, expenditures and payroll, was $972,202. Average revenue coming in was $838,431. That's an average monthly loss of $133,771. Okay, which is comparable to what you've been told. Okay. Any other questions on this particular slide? Whoops. Okay. General fund.
I got a quick question.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
So your taxes and your TAW number, any chance that that comes in lower than?
No, the tax anticipation warrant number is based on the levy. So it's going to be 85% of, you see the underneath the real estate tax distribution number that's lower on? That is what was levied. So it'll be the $1,266,777. So it's not going to change. You're going to get the $1,076,076. And that $1,076,076 is Hickory Point Bank. The interest rate is 2.1%. We will be doing a closing on that on January 25th. Mr. Esri?
I just got to ask this, JJ. Did you have two sets of numbers figured for tonight in case like the TAR maybe didn't pass?
No, I did not. I'm an optimist some days. I did not. You know what? Now that you mention it, I didn't even think about it not passing, to tell you the truth. Looking at the general fund. General fund, the cash balance in 080, that's the actual general fund, $3,173,551. That's today. We list those three different funds there because they're all in the same bank account. And so as things ebb and flow, they're all combined in that one bank account. So that gives us our big account there. Payroll for the month, that's estimated. Accounts payable, that's actually what we've paid out so far this month. And then the monthly revenue is there as well. We're projecting an ending cash balance of $3,116,000 for the end of the month of January. Now, what I want you to look at here is just, again, this is just using averages, but where we start to have issues is here in March and April. Our payroll is more than the amount that's in the March projection, and that's a 3 payroll month. As you see in April, it shows that we go into a negative area. To combat this, I will be coming to you next month and asking for an authorization for a loan from the Public Safety Sales Tax Fund of up to $1.5 million. And that is something that the county has done in the past. The last 2 fiscal years, it has not had to happen. In 2016, it was mostly due to a timing issue. We got lucky that payroll fell on a certain day of the month and we didn't have to use any of that. In 2017, again, it just timed out the right way. So we'll come to you and ask for that, and I would hope that you would support that so that we have that so that we can make sure that there's no issues before real estate taxes start being distributed to the taxing bodies, including Champaign County. As you see, we project starting in May, we start having real estate distributions, and we should be in good shape after that as far as the balance goes. Any questions on the general corporate fund?
I heard there's a lot of money went into the tax collector in December. None of that money can be used until June.
That's right. To explain what Mr. McGuire's talking about. So at the last week of December, last about 2 weeks of December, stories started hitting the news about you need to talk to your accountant, see if you should pay your real estate taxes early. And some accountants told people, go and do that. And some said, don't do that. And the county treasurer's office here in Champaign County for at least the last 45 years, as Dan Welch recalled, has allowed during the month of December people to prepay their real estate taxes in case they may get a tax benefit on their income taxes. We offered no advice on whether they should do this or not. This is totally between the taxpayer and their accountant and the IRS. We're just glad to take their money. So it started hitting the news about the last 2 weeks. Right around Christmas, it got real popular. And there were lines out the door for people wanting to come and pay their property taxes early. Dan had never seen anything like it. In a normal year, the county would collect around $2 million during that period. And of course, that's $2 million. That's, the county gets a portion of that, but it's all the taxing districts. About 200 to 250 taxpayers taking advantage of that in a normal year. We collected $11.3 million. So what happens with those funds is the collector, that's my other hat as county collector, the collector holds those funds until distributions start in May. And the distribution schedule, we start doing that after tax bills go out. And that's prescribed by law. We have to make a distribution within 30 days of the tax bills going out. So part of that money, we're already at 4% collected for the year, which is unheard of. So those funds will be available to start going out to the taxing districts after the bills go out, so early May. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a sense of when you're going to come before us to ask for the Public Safety Task Force?
Yeah, I will do that next month.
In February?
I would like to have that done so that it's available should we need it.
Thank you.
I think that's everything that I have for you. If anyone has any other questions.
I have a question. There are a lot of issues hanging fire on the horizon of bills coming up, being sued, things like that. Have you done any assumption projections on what that will be doing in a hit on the general fund?
I have not done anything as far as that goes towards the general fund because we don't know. As you see in these projections, our balance gets low there in March and April. So if we get hit with something, absent of some other source of income that we don't have, this is the money that we have available to us.
Before you escape, I think you have a resolution.
Yeah, that's my next item.
Okay.
So if we're done with this, the next item is it deals with a parcel that went to the tax sale, and as Ms. Harden spoke earlier, by the way, I'm meeting with her tomorrow to just go over things. We've been in contact with each other for the last couple of days, and so I hope to find out as much as I can from her about her experiences and what's happening and what we can do and what we can do better in the treasurer's office as well. The particular item that's in front of you right now is different from hers in that it went to the tax sale, but it did not get sold, so the trustee took that deed and held on to it. Eventually, the actual homeowner came in and redeemed those taxes. So this is actually giving deed of the property back to the original homeowner who has satisfied their obligations to the taxing districts. So I'd recommend approval of this.
I'm sorry, were you moving it? Oh. Mr. Goss.
I would move approval of the resolution.
So we have we already have a second. So it's moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. Oh, and we have one. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't ask for any discussion. I won't do that again. Mr. King.
Thanks, Steph. So this is just a flight question, but you're here. So Bitcoin is considered property. is that anything related to anything you foresee in the future coming down?
Right now, the law allows us to deal in cash. We'll keep it that way.
Mr. Patterson?
I guess just real quickly, could you give us some insight on, 'cause I'm looking here at the map of like the slither of land. How does that happen, that a small portion of?
The little strip of land, from the way it was explained to me, sometimes it could be a surveyor's error. Sometimes it could be, like you'll see this in some of the newer subdivisions, access to, say, a commons area. With this one in particular, I really think it had to have been a surveyor's error. That's the only thing I can see on it. And from what I've talked to other folks, it makes no sense whatsoever. When you look at that plat in that area, that's it's called the AMVET subdivision. It was done in post-war, in the early 50s, and it sticks out. I don't know how that happened. I need to talk to the homeowner, but I don't know how if a title search was done on it and things like that, how they missed something like that. I'm perplexed by it as well.
Is this something that is common, or is this like completely?
I think it's very rare. On the tax sale, the items that actually go to the tax sale and then the trustee takes deed to it, you're talking about maybe 30 to 40 parcels in the entire county. So it's very rare. And that's one of the reasons why I think that if there's something that I can personally do or have my office do to notify folks that are around that, it should be something that's doable. Just want to make sure it's legal, whatever we want to do.
And also, she had mentioned that the treasurer's office had sent postcards. What type of information is on that postcard? Because I know that when you look at like parcel numbers, if I were to, anybody were to get that, they'd have no idea what it meant. Is there like a map involved? Or?
What I understand was these are actually sent by the trustee. That's part of what we contract with them. So I have not seen these postcards, so I need to see that. And you're absolutely right. If you just get a postcard that says this PIN number has an issue, it's not very helpful. One of the best things we have in this county is our GIS website. It's fantastic. I've had people call and ask me if they see things on the news, and he said, hey, where can I find this out? A friend of mine sent me this Facebook message. He's all worried about it, and I sent him a link to the GIS website. He looked it up. I said, make sure that the 4 people that you think live around you are actually the people that own that, and just be aware of your neighbors. Max?
Just, just an FYI that when this person took title to the land, a lot of times, there are a lot of lots in this community platted that have multiple tax IDs. So, it might be something that could even go back to the title company, when she took title to the property, that, she was represented by an attorney, that they would have known that, but someone should have had, when a deed passed, that it should have had the two lots on it included.
Right. That's what I'd like to see. So, to see how it was handled when I think she said that she bought the house in 2006. So that'll be very interesting.
Yeah, and the other thing that happens too is people encroach.
Yes.
They don't own it. Somebody builds a fence because they think they know where the property line is. They don't have it surveyed, and it's an encroachment, and therefore, you would be surprised if you drive through Lincolnshire and see all the encroachment that there is on the drainage district ditches. A lot of houses that are beside the Feeney ditch have encroached on that easement, and nobody stopped them 40 years ago, and therefore there are problems on the horizon.
That's right.
I will just leave it at that. So that happens all the time when people don't know where they think they know where their property lines. Somebody else might have put the fence in, and she just followed what the last person did. So.
And a title search doesn't guarantee.
That's right. Yeah. One of the neatest things when we bought our house 2.5 years ago, a friend of mine is a land surveyor, licensed land surveyor, and I said to him, I need to know where the property lines are. Either we're friends with the people that are around me. I said, I want to know where they are. And I spent an afternoon with him. It was actually pretty neat to learn about land surveying and how they do it, and the pins, and that they have to hit the pin with a metal hammer, otherwise it won't show up on metal detectors, which, you know, that's science that I don't understand. I understand money. But it was a pretty neat afternoon, so it's something to do. Yeah, I mean, don't throw me Bitcoins. No, I don't want to do that. Mr. King, evidently, you and I need to have coffee and talk Bitcoin, I guess.
Thank you. Next up, we will hear from the auditor.
Congratulations, Ms. Furtado.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
See what you've done to me.
Very quickly here, I also have monthly reports that are on the auditor's webpage and like for them to be placed on file. You can look them up.
So moved.
Okay. Next up, I have the Champaign County Nursing Home Accounts Payable update. You all should have received an updated form at your desk. I think I covered some of this at the prior special meeting. You know, once again, the highlights are the grand total of obligations are 5.5, which is an increase for this month. General Corp on January 5th was 3.2. The home owes 2.8 to the outside vendors and 2.6 to the county. As you can see, the breakdown of some of the larger payables. On the back side, once again, we are decreasing some of the vendors that are at 100,000, but there are actually a couple that are closing in on it. Cisco's up to 96 and RSM US is up to 88. So even though we're closing down on a couple of them, there are a few that are rising at this time. So if anybody has any questions. Great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. So now we're going to move to budget amendments and transfers. D1, Budget Amendment 17-0053, Fund 679 Child Advocacy Center, Department 179 Child Advocacy Center, increased appropriations of $1,000, increased revenue of $1,000, reason end of the year personnel expenses, revenue from increased grant funds. Do I have Mr. Goss, Mr. Tinsley, and discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Next up, Budget Amendment 17-00055, Fund 080, General Corporate, Department 043, Emergency Management Agency. This is for an increased appropriation of $8,801 with increased revenue of $8,801. Reason for funds received from the Illinois Emergency Hazardous Material Planning Grant for Hazardous Commodity Flow Study Freight Train Data Collection Funds have been received and deposited with the County Treasurer and paid for completed surveys. Mr. Anders, do I have Anderson second? I saw Mr. Storr first. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Next up, Budget Amendment 17-00056, Fund 080, General Corporate, Department 041, State's Attorney. Increased appropriation of $3,000, increased revenue, none. This is from fund balance. Reason to pay for expert testimony in 3 child abuse cases. We had heard mention of this earlier. Do I have a motion, Mr. Esri? And then second, Mr. King. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Okay. Next up, Budget Amendment 17-0057, Fund 675, Victim Advocacy Grant, ICJIA, Department 041, State's Attorney. Increased appropriation of $2,619, increased revenue, none. This is also from the fund balance. Reason to pay for fiscal year 2017 salary cost deficit created following a former employee's retirement and payout. Do I have a motion? Ms. Petrie, do I have a second? Mr. King, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? And finally, Budget Amendment 17-0058, Fund 080, General Corporate Department 030, Circuit Clerk, increased appropriation of $660. This is our smallest one for the day. Increased revenue, none, it's from the fund balance. Reason for Westlaw subscriptions and abandoned bond payments. Do I have a motion? Mr. Anderson, Ms. Petrie, second. And any discussion? What?
Real quick, what's Westlaw?
Sorry, what is Westlaw? I'm going to let these folks explain
Westlaw
it
is
better than me.
the basic digital version of all the library books that the lawyers used to have stacked up in their offices. So if you were searching for cases, case histories, you look it up and they give it to you.
Like a subscription. Any other questions?
Yep.
Yes, Mr. King.
What's abandoned bond payments?
Again, I'm going to.
That's a really good question.
Could it be money that's never been picked up? Refunds that's never been picked up? Does that make sense? No, it doesn't, because they need money for it. I don't know.
Do we?
We'll look into that.
Any other questions? Do you want to table it? Do I have to, how do?
It's $660, folks.
We will get the answer and provide an explanation. I have a feeling it has to do with a processing procedure that the circuit clerk has to do, but I don't know for certain, but we'll find out.
Okay, so we're going to vote. We had the motion, yeah. So we're going to vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Next up, we are hearing from the state's attorney. E1.
It's
I
a
just make the motion.
request.
Okay.
Yeah.
Request for approval of fiscal year 2018 State's Attorney Appellate Prosecutor's Office contract renewal. Mr. Esri, do I have a second? We'll let you get on the board with the second. Any discussion? We have the State's Attorney here if anybody has any questions. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? From the County Administrator.
You have a copy of the monthly budget projection report in your yellow packet. This is for the month of December, although this will not be the final report that you will see for fiscal year 2017 because the county will continue to record revenues and expenditures in January and February. So starting with the revenue report, just a couple of changes that I'll note from last month. Federal grants, I have reduced the projected revenues slightly from last month. The county has finalized its JMHCP grant and underspent that grant by about $26,000 in the 2017 budget. So this was a drawdown grant, so we will not receive those revenues since we did not expend those funds. Also, the Sheriff's Office notified me that the one of the grants that they anticipated receiving for fiscal year 2017 will not be received until fiscal year 2018. And we are also still uncertain whether we'll receive one of the grants that's budgeted in the Emergency Management Fund in fiscal year 2017. We are certain to receive it. It's just the timing of whether or not that will come in so that we can record that for fiscal year 2017. In the state reimbursement line, again, we have been projecting that we would bring in very close to what was budgeted. I just wanted to update you that we have received disbursements from AOIC for probation or for the salaries through March of 2017. So in consulting with Mr. Williams, there will be receipt of one more disbursement in fiscal year 2017 and a partial disbursement for the month of May. One of the more significant changes on the revenue report that I want to point out is in general government fees. This revenue line has declined from last month, I believe around $100,000. I started looking into this to determine why there was such a significant impact within just a month. And I consulted with the recorder's office today. The November and December collections for recording fees declined significantly, and we know that occurs in November and December just because the number of real estate transactions declines. But when you compare these even to fiscal year 2016, the number of recorded documents is down significantly. So that's where this change is being impacted. On the expenditure side, again, the county will continue to process bills for fiscal year 2017. We are projecting savings in expenditures, and this number has fluctuated from last month. I am projecting more savings than what I reflected last month, in part due to the fact that we have completed all of the FOP contract negotiations. You will be seeing the last one at the county board meeting this month for court security. And with the exception of one of the contracts, we were able to pay for the cost of those increases through savings due to turnover in those budgets. So that's part of the reason for this fluctuation, showing additional savings and expenditures in 2017. On the fund balance page, you can see the revenue to expenditure difference here projected at negative $182,000. I was updating this report even at 5 o'clock this afternoon to reflect sales tax revenues that were posted on the Illinois Department of Revenue's homepage, website. And one of the things that I want to make sure that the board understands, I know that Mr. Farney gave a report earlier, and Ms. Michaels gave a report earlier that talked about the fund balance being around $3.2 million. And you can see here that the fund balance projection that I have for fiscal year 2017 is closer to $4.3 million. Again, the county will continue to record revenues that it will receive in January and February. We still have 2 sales tax disbursements for the 1 cent and the quarter cent that will be recorded for fiscal year 2017. We also have 2 use tax disbursements that should be recorded in 2017. And as I mentioned last month, I am still projecting that with the accelerated payments for income tax, we will receive December and be able to post that in fiscal year 2017. Normally, the December disbursement isn't posted until the next fiscal year. So that is also reflected in this projection. The one transfer that the county has yet to make, which should be made this week, is the transfer from the general fund to the capital asset replacement fund for our facilities improvements that were budgeted in 2017. So that $532,000 transfer will be made. And then again, there'll be some bills that will continue to trickle in that will be posted to 2017. So this fund balance projection that you see of just under $4.3 million is reflective of what I'm anticipating at this time for the county to continue to receive in revenue and expend in expenditures. And for the first time in 2017 reports, you can see that we're in that 12% range for projected fund balance. We have been, I know, in the 11.8%, but not at the 12%. But now that we have a better understanding of where we're going to end up in fiscal year 2017, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to meet this 12.1% fund balance number. And as you know, that is below our recommended fund balance of 12.5%.
Any questions while we have her here? Ms. Petrie.
Approximately when do you think you'll have enough data to give us a bit of a feel as to how that fund balance will look as we work our way through 2018?
Are you talking about the end of 2018?
Well, take us to 6 months because we have a lot of things coming up in the next 6 months. So I'm interested how that's going to potentially hit this fund balance.
Well, the budget was balanced for 2018. I mean, with the additional money that was recorded as revenue associated with a potential ruling in the property tax case, we did not include that as expenditures. So if you recall, the surplus, I believe, was just under $10,000. There's not a lot of wiggle room for 2018. When we were doing budget projections, there was still, we weren't 100% sure how income taxes were going to perform. And as you know, the 10% cut, I'm still, that should go through June. We did lower our projections for income taxes, so hopefully we're pretty accurate in that regard. In terms of sales tax, we have seen strong performance. We did reduce revenues for fees and fines, but I am concerned about, continued deterioration in those lines. I can't give you a solid number. If there were subsidies required for the nursing home, we've had the discussion that those should more than likely be approached as budget amendments as opposed to loans. So if that were to occur, then that would have an immediate impact on the general fund's fund balance. But if all of the revenue is received and we expend what we think we're going to, then you'll be looking at the same number here plus $10,000.
Thank you.
On the,
sorry, Mr. King.
Sorry, it was a question about the grants. I was trying to figure out if the grants are managed or applied for by the departments, or is there a specific person's role to go after the state and federal grants within the county?
That's done by department.
Thank you.
The budget change report, just to note the changes that are reflected here that were recorded in December. The public defender, circuit court, coroner, and Veterans Assistant Commission are the 4 budget amendments that were approved by the county board last month.
Thank you. Any questions about that? Thank you for staying so late this evening. Next up, we have a recommendation from the Job Content Evaluation Committee regarding the GIS specialist position, which we discussed a little bit earlier. Just a note, it's actually page 12 through 16, and if you're following along in the blue packet. And specifically, the Finance Committee recommends to this is what we're asking for. The Finance Committee recommends to the County Board approval of reclassification of the GIS specialist position from grade range G to grade range I effective January 14th, 2018. Do I have a motion? Mr. Esri and Mr. Anderson says second. Discussion. Seeing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Next, we have in other business, a resolution authorizing the adjustments of compensation of nursing home board of director members. And that you can find on page 35. Do I need to read that? Okay. Essentially, this is a motion to change the compensation for the nursing home board of directors to $0 pursuant to conversation that we had at earlier meetings. Do I have a motion for this?
I'll move it for discussion purposes at this point.
Okay, so we have a movement for discussion purposes. Do we have a second?
Point of order, you move a motion.
All right, we have a movement. Do we have a second? All right. Ms. Petrie, second. Discussion.
On December 11th, I think it was, the Nursing Home Advisory Board was talking about the cost, the expenses of the nursing home, and it was brought up by one of the members that possibly the nursing home should show that the board there should show the support for the nursing home by forfeiting compensation that's received by that board. There was some short discussion, and then it was put to a vote and unanimously approved. My understanding at that point, we were talking, that board is compensated $45 for attending the meeting once a month. So 45 times 12, that's your annual amount. What was not discussed, but is in this resolution, and it's a concern of mine, and I'll explain it, is the mileage reimbursement. Mileage reimbursement, for me, I'll use my example because I am one of the outliers in the rural areas, and there are others of us here as well who could equally serve on a board like this. It is about 17 miles from my house to the nursing home. So you get a sense that that's 34-mile round trip. I'm reimbursed by the federal mileage reimbursement rate of 53 cents a mile. So I get about $18 for having made that trip. And then I get taxed on it because I receive it as income. And then I get taxed. So I don't actually receive that amount. I do. I got something else going on. But at the end of the day, it's $18 out of my pocket to serve the community. And to put that in perspective, over a year's period, it comes out to $216 a year. That's more than I give my son for a birthday gift. And if I serve on the board, well, and if I serve on this county board and am lucky enough to serve the entire 4 years, in this case I will, that comes out to about $864. I am willing to forego the stipend payment for the attendance at the meeting because I'm willing to donate that time because I'm here to serve the community. I believe that's why I got elected. But to ask people to pull out of their pocket and pay for the privilege to serve, I don't think is where we want to go because it will discourage people to want to be on these committees who are in the outlying areas. I don't know if I drive the furthest to this building every day or if there's people who drive further than me. I see somebody nodding maybe, but so I don't think we want to create that barrier. The board that evening talked about the compensation to the board, and I think the understanding was the $45, not the reimbursement. I think there's a difference there when you're getting compensated for your time versus your actual out-of-pocket expense. And so I would ask if this group is wanted to move forward with removing the compensation for the board, that we remove the language in the resolution. There's 3 occurrences, but bottom line is you just strike and mileage. So you leave in per diem if you chose to leave in per diem, but strike and mileage so that reimbursement would occur.
And you're making that as a amendment? Yes. Do we have a second to that amendment? Mr. McGuire, any other discussion on the amendment? Ms. Petrie.
Information question for our county administrator. How are we handling mileage for other board appointments? Do we offer that? I mean, I know for our own board we do, but I mean other boards that we appoint to.
I think it depends on the board. I mean, some of the boards have their own rules about what compensation is, and it's not paid by the county. The Zoning Board of Appeals is compensated, and that is paid by the county. But, and the bylaws clearly state, the nursing home bylaws, which you are following with this resolution, clearly state that the compensation for the nursing home board members can be reviewed and adjusted by the county board. So that's what you would be doing here.
Okay, and then just a reminder that over time, many board members have refused to take the mileage. So there is that option also.
Particularly on this board.
Right,
Yeah.
right. That's what I'm talking about, yes.
It's a point of order.
Yes.
Robert's Rules does not recognize friendly amendments. However, if you say if there's no objection, then it's okay. They should do that.
Thank you. So is there no objection? Thank you for that clarification. It's not on my cheat sheet. Yes. All right. Any other discussion on the resolution as a whole before we vote?
As amended.
As amended. Yeah, sorry. That's what I meant to say. Any discussion on the resolution as amended before we vote? I saw Mr. King first and then Mr. Harkey.
So it's just going to ask for clarification of what we're just saying, we're trying to amend this to pay for travel or mileage.
Correct. Mr. Harkey?
I think this is a mistake because what we do here is important, and we need to have many voices available to get at the table. When you start removing any sort of compensation from public boards, you get to a point where only people who are either independently wealthy or who are retired or have separate sources of income can serve. It eliminates the ability of people with lower income. It makes it harder for people with kids who maybe have to get a babysitter. I think it really reduces the potential pool of people that you can get involved. We just set a county executive salary at $117,000 a year plus benefits. And we can't squeeze $45 a meeting for people who are donating sometimes 3 and 4 hours of their night, and not just at that meeting. See, this is the other thing. We pay per diems for our county board members and these other groups, but many of the people who are responsible members spend hours and hours out of their week meeting with other folks, meeting private meetings that they're not compensated for. So when we add up the possibility of maybe saving $4,000 at the nursing home while reducing the potential pool of good applicants to join the nursing home board, I think that's a little bit of a mistake. I'm also concerned about the mileage thing because for one thing, 53 cents a mile does give you a little bit of money over what it actually costs usually to drive your vehicle. So we are compensating now our further away and rural members more than we are our members who live in town. And admittedly, I'm only 6 miles away, but there's about 12 stoplights in between there. So I spend quite a while waiting to get over here too. So we have expenses as well. So I'll be voting against removing this per diem.
Any other discussion? Mr. Storr?
Thank you. As a point of clarification, if we vote this down, does the compensation for the county nursing home board members remain at $45 and then the mileage is okay?
Yes, nothing changes if we vote this down. Okay, any other discussion? Mr. Anderson?
Just briefly, you know, I carefully listened to Mr. Storr earlier this evening when he mentioned it was about 45 cents. Or 40 cents.
That's not exaggerating.
Sorry. And that was
40 cents per month per person,
yeah. Yeah, it's, right. Anyway, I think I would prefer to try to alleviate some of the expense on our taxpayers and maybe free up some of that money by supporting the amended resolution by removing the per diem, but allowing the mileage reimbursement so the participants don't lose out on their own expense. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Any other discussion? Yes, sir.
you know, I guess I'm naive here. When I first got on the board, I didn't know we got per diem. But after being here 5 years, I'm going to agree with Josh. Don't fall out of your chair, okay?
I told you we agree more than.
I could say, don't be shocked, but, you know, Josh is right. People put in a lot of time doing these things, either on phone calls or at these meetings or whatever. You know, if things get so bad we can't afford $45 or $60, then I think we need to keep the quality of people on these boards up. So I think we just vote this down and stay the way we are. So my choice.
Mr. Isaac.
Quick question, Deb. You like on this board we can turn down mileage. Can you turn down your per diem? I didn't think so. I thought you had to. I mean, you could obviously do with it what you want. You could, just donate it right back to the nursery. I didn't think you truly could turn it down if it's. I just double checking. Thanks.
Okay. Ms. Petrie.
What has always troubled me about this per diem is that we're not consistent across all the boards that we appoint to. And so we either get in line, so all the boards that we appoint to, they get per diems, that they get mileage, or we get this payouts.
Mr. Weibel.
That'd be nice, but we don't control most of the boards that we appoint to, like fire protection districts. Well, you said all the boards they appoint to.
Okay. Any other discussion? I believe we've heard from the talkative side of the room. Mr. Patterson.
Just to clarify, are we voting on the amendment or the amended resolution?
There was no objections to the amendment already, so we will be voting on the amended resolution. All right, we're going to vote. All those in favor of the recommendation, the resolution authorizing the adjustment of compensation of nursing home board of directors members, striking the mileage, say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. The ayes have it. I don't.
Point of order, can I have a roll call, you show of hands?
Okay, show of hands. All right, show of hands for the aye. Opposed?
Up higher, up high.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The ayes have it, correct? Sorry.
Do it again.
Yeah, sorry.
People put their hands down over here too.
All right, sorry. Ayes, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah. The noes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9. Yeah, it passed 11 to 9.
Damn.
All right, so from the chair's report, I don't have anything, and
Don't go anywhere.
for the designation of items to be placed on the
Don't go
consent
anywhere.
agenda, I have A3, D1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and E1.
F3, F3.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, and F3.
I'd actually like to ask you to take off D5, the infamous abandoned bond payment.
Okay, I'll agree to that.
We'll
Yes.
put that on the regular agenda.
And we'll get a better
Other
answer
people
for
have to
you.
know.
Mr. Chairman, I have other business also.
Sorry?
I have other business.
Oh. Oh. Okay, other business. Mr. McGuire.
Sorry, thanks. Two issues have been brought to my attention and that I had questions about. One is the SAK's contract, because my understanding is it may come up in March, but it may have a couple of months where they have to be noticed if there's a change in their contract. But I was wondering about that, if it needs to come up for the full board, or what the actual process is for SAK's contract.
I don't know, but I will look into it.
Thank you. I've been out of the country. I don't know. The second issue has to do definitely the high altitude. I am in one piece, so that's important. The second issue has to do with facilities, and we haven't had a facilities meeting for a couple of months. But on the agenda of the last facilities meeting we had to do with the ADA for the old jail. And I wanted to know if we were going to do something with that within the next full board. I heard there's fines and other responsibilities. When will that be?
We're working that, we'll be having a facilities meeting next month, so we're actually actively working on that.
Thank you, that's what I got.
So you can get some sleep. Is there any other business? We're adjourned.